But
Let's see.
no, don't just back it off a tiny bit. That's all, just tiny. That's good.
Like a little dimmer?
Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Now, before I introduce you to today's guest, I have a couple of brief announcements. The first one, I want to thank Jen Ziegler for her very generous super chat donation. I can't always ring the bell depending on who the guest is and the parts of the show, but I do want to acknowledge her for the wonderful donation, and all of you that have made a donation. It's not necessary, but it's greatly appreciated. The other thing I want you to know is that in 10 days from today, May 5th, it's Cinco de Mayo, which just happens to coincide with my 500th episode of Chef AJ Live. So we're going to be doing a very special giveaway that day. We have a prize worth $500. The thing is, you have to be watching live to win, and you have to be watching on YouTube first. So all of those that keep watching on Facebook, please hop on over to YouTube. It's so much better there because one, you get notifications. Two, you get to be involved in what I call the Zoomunity, this wonderful group of people that have been with me since day one, March 20th, 2020, where we have a chat. You can't see it on Facebook. It just doesn't exist. So please consider subscribing to me on YouTube and watching on YouTube, especially that day, if you want to win this $500 prize. Also consider getting on my website, chefaj.com, because we're going to send out an announcement about what this prize is. But believe me, it's something in the plant-based world that everybody wants. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome back today's guest. Her name is Shoshana Chaim, and she was on the show before doing a wonderful culinary demonstration, which I'll link below, where she made a delicious sweet potato macaroni and cheese. She's also the co-host of the fabulous Plant Trainers podcast, but she's here today as an author of an adorable new book called I Am a Peaceful Goldfish. Please welcome back Shoshana Chaim.
Thank you. Thank you, Chef AJ. I'm grateful to be here back again. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
Please welcome back.
Well, that is such a key, it's so funny when you gave me the book to read, and I'm like, well, you just gave it to me yesterday. I can't read a book in a day, but this one I could.
This one you definitely could. I think there's under 200 words because it is a picture book for the wee little ones. And I know last time when I was on making them the healthier version of the mac and cheese, we were talking about how to get your little ones to eat better. So, family is where it's at in our house. Family's where it's at with the plant trainers. So it's just really wonderful to be able to have something else to add on top of just what we eat, because we know that it's more than just the food that we put in our mouths that make us healthy.
Absolutely. So what inspired you to write a children's book, and what inspired the name, I Am a Peaceful Goldfish? Aren't most goldfish peaceful?
I think most goldfish are definitely peaceful. So a little bit about me. Before I got into the health world, I was actually a elementary school teacher, mostly kindergarten, a little bit of phys ed as well. So books were really part of my life. I had a very extensive collection of picture books as an adult. And one day my son was having a really hard day. I was transitioning out of teaching into nutrition and lifestyle and all those things. And I was trying to teach him to take those deep breaths, the one that I had learned to do with my PTSD and everything else. And he wasn't having any of it. He was already lost in that hyperventilation state, really upset, couldn't get hold of his mind or his body. And I was reaching for a book because as a kindergarten teacher, as a parent, if you're going on a trip to grandma's house, you read a book. If you're going to the zoo, well, not that we go to zoos anymore, but you're going to the farm, you read a book. And there was no book to teach my children how to. And I decided to sit down and write it so that I would have a tool to use with my own children, and so that I would have a tool to use with my students at school and my yoga students as well, because I was teaching kids yoga too. And that's really where the book began. And it was not called I'm a Peaceful Goldfish at the beginning. It was called The Big Breath Book. But, after working with editors and publishers and all of that, the goldfish was really the prevalent page and in every draft of the book. And it was like, who doesn't want to be a peaceful goldfish, especially now? Who doesn't want to just float around and be fed and enjoy life? So that's definitely where the book came from, an experience with my son.
I didn't realize you were a kindergarten teacher.
I was a kindergarten teacher for a very long time, and books were there not a day went by where I didn't read 2-3 books to my class based on different subjects that we were learning, books are not just for learning how to read, they're for exploring the world and learning more about the world as well.
Yeah. And children's books are very popular. Some of the top selling books on Amazon are actually children's picture books.
They are, especially the Dr. Seuss books, which made it really nerve-wracking, actually, as my book, as I had my public date on April 13th, Dr. Seuss had mentioned, or not Dr. Seuss himself, but they are stopping to print some of the Dr. Seuss books, which meant that they have been extremely popular lately and people have been buying a lot of them. So as I knew I had a goal to hit #1 bestseller, it was a little nerve-wracking knowing who I was up against and what I was competing with. But we got it done. We got it done. And yeah, I Am a Peaceful Goldfish is a #1 bestseller.
All right. Mazel tov. Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, why do you think the book is relevant right now?
So it's definitely relevant right now. And a lot of people say, wow, you really took advantage of a poor situation with COVID, with Black Lives Matters, and created a book that can really help to heal this world right now. But the truth is that I wrote this 6 years ago. Right? So this was relevant 6 years ago, it's just more relevant today, but 6 million children have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression. More and more children, and there's tons that haven't been diagnosed, more and more children are under stress and pressure, as are the parents and everybody else in this world with the pandemic around us. And really children need an opportunity to learn the skills of taking deep breaths, of calming down, because more and more situations are going to come up throughout their lives. And there's a lot coming up now. And think about if we would have had some of the tools to deal with our situations that were less comfortable. If we had those tools when we were younger, maybe our anxiety, maybe our emotions, maybe our binging or our emotional eating would not have elevated or escalated to the points that it had. And we wouldn't be needing to spend our good years, our 30s, our 40s, our 50s, our 60s, undoing all of this damage that has been done. So if we can give these young children the skills that we know are so important as adults now, and make it just as important as math, as reading, as science, then I think we're going to end up having a much better world than we would have in 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah, when I always wondered why important subjects were never taught in school. I mean, they had us memorize dates of historic battles. What's that going to get me other than a few points on Jeopardy?
Well, if you're on Jeopardy, you'll get lots of money. But yeah, I mean, the truth is that if we can't calm our nerves to take the test, we can't even show what we've learned as well. So there's so many different factors that we can consider here. But you're right, we do need to we need to teach the important things. We need to teach how to behave with other people, how to calm down, which foods are important to eat, how to build community. These are the important things that we really need kids to understand.
Yeah. So is this book only for kids, or is it only for anxious kids, or who could benefit from this book?
So anybody can really benefit from this book, 0 to 100 or 120, whatever you want to say, everybody can benefit. So yes, it's definitely appealing to the children, bright colors and all of that. But as the parents are sitting and reading with it, and on every page, right, at the beginning of the book, what happens? The ice cream falls on the floor. It's vegan ice cream. The ice cream falls on the floor. The crayon breaks in half. The page tears. The toy loses its tail. The kids are upset. And then the goldfish catches their eye. So they take a deep breath in. And when they breathe out, they're the goldfish. Literally, I can show you. They're the goldfish in the bowl, right? Let's see. Right? When they breathe out, they are the goldfish in the bowl. And then they go, oh, I have another idea. So they see the elephant that lost its tail. And so they take a big breath in. And when they breathe out, they are the elephant. So as the parent is going through, or the guardian or the educator is going through the book with the child, they take that deep breath in and they take that deep breath out. And what will happen is the adult will practice too. The idea is to practice taking the deep breaths in and out when you're in a good mood, when you're in a happy mood. So then when you're in a less satisfying mood, you can kind of bring yourself down. You can connect more with your body. You can make better decisions, say better things moving forward. And I think the adults get that reminder too. And I'm getting emails saying that I showed this book to my teenager and she wanted me to buy it for her, or my mother read the book with my child the other day, and my mother came out of the room saying, I feel so much more relaxed now. So this is really a hidden treasure, I think, for anybody of any age.
Yeah. So talk about your transition. I didn't even realize you were a kindergarten teacher because I've only known you as a podcaster. So what was your story with that?
Sure. So I went into straight out of, we went to CEGEP in Montreal. You graduate high school, you go 2 years of like a mini college, and then you go straight into university. So I did a bachelor's of education, and I taught for 15 years here in Toronto and in Hong Kong for a couple of years as well. And that was my life. I was a kindergarten teacher at private schools. And what happened is over the years, really, I think I started to burn out a little bit, right? There's a lot of work. There's a lot working in private school, a lot of parents and a lot of things going on. But what happened during that time was when I was pregnant with my second, like we've talked about before, my husband Adam had heart disease and a tumor. And I was told 3 times in 9 months that I might need to raise my kids on my own. And that was kind of the time where I said, I'm spending so much time away from my own kids. I'm spending so much time and loving it with these other children. But what about my own family? My values kind of changed, and I wanted to be home a little bit more. And then when we found the plant-based lifestyle and started the podcast, and that was taking up time and, doing nutrition certification and getting everything under our belt, I realized that I wanted to teach in a different way. I wanted to teach strong women to raise healthier families, to have the skills and the tools to be able to do that. And I transitioned out of teaching in school to teaching people how to change their lifestyle. And that's really how I got to where I was. And during that transition, because of the PTSD coming from thinking I was going to lose Adam, I was doing a lot of work on myself. And I was doing more yoga and meditation and got my children's yoga certification. And that was really the entrance into the book. And it took 6 years. So people are like, why this book now? Because they don't consider me a kindergarten teacher anymore, because they don't remember me that way or don't know me that way. But that's really where this book stemmed from 6 years ago. I've been basically birthing this book for 6 years.
Wow, that's a long pregnancy.
Yes. Yeah, but I didn't put on any weight from it, so it's fine.
That's great. So you don't have to take any off. What's the goal of the book?
So the goal of the book really is to teach children how to take those deep breaths, how to get through some of those situations that they're going to go through a little bit more easier throughout life, and to also teach their families. Because at first, when I first had a vision for this book, it was very granola, and it was almost preaching to the people who were already ready to learn breathing techniques. And the goal of the book changed to bringing breathing techniques into every household and trying to expose people to it. And also what was really important to me, after working at, private Jewish schools for most of my life, and having books that my own children can see themselves in, I really wanted to create a book where every child can identify in, whether it's through the emotions or through the pictures. I didn't want it to be just another book with 2 white children in it again. So that was really important to me. And luckily I have beautiful publishers who agreed, and the creative team really worked hard on getting it done. So of course we have 2 characters, right? We have two different representations, right? Like the orange hair, which isn't so common. Not everybody can see themselves there. And of course, not white skin, different color skin. But then we were like, how are we going to get even more children? And so what we did is, in the front cover is we did, am I there? Mm-hmm. We did, we tried to do as best representation as possible of different ages, different shapes, different sizes, different moods. And, that they do start off quite cranky at the beginning of the book, but then at the end of the book, when we finish off, they're smiley and they're a little bit happier. And not to say that, breathing is going to make us feel happy every time, but we know that when our nervous system is working better, we're able to make those better decisions. And there's a funny little cat that follows them through the book and tries to do all the little activities with them. Like here they're hanging to be the little wind chimes. When they breathe out, they make the bell noise, but the cat's trying to join them too and not quite getting it right. So there is no perfect. So the kids that don't necessarily, who aren't ready, who are ready to observe, or who are trying but not really getting it, maybe they'll identify with the cat, right? Because they're like, oh, that silly little cat's just not there yet. He's not ready, and neither am I. And that's okay too. So I wanted to not preach. I just wanted it to be a fun learning experience that was child-led, not adult-led.
Well, you talk about inclusivity in the book, and I see cats and goldfish and dragons and even an elephant. I don't see any dogs.
There are no dogs in this book, but there's another book on its way, so maybe I'll be able to tie a dog into that one.
Of course, I'm just kidding you, but the illustrations are fantastic. Who did the drawings?
Thank you. So they're Lori Joy Smith. She's a Canadian illustrator, and she did the pictures. She has some really great other books on her own, and I'm so thrilled and so happy with how it came out. I love the colors. I love the playfulness of it. So she did a great job, and I'm really happy and humbled to have worked with her.
Yeah, Linda must have joined late because she asked, what foods do you recommend in this book? And this particular book isn't about food.
It isn't about food, but like I said at the beginning, when we have those stress levels down, we make better choices, right? We make better choices. We don't necessarily get carried away with some of the, emotional eating is a big thing for me. So when we can stay calm. So I think, and a lot of people say, well, the book's not about food. Why isn't it about food? And, we have our pillars, right? We have our lifestyle pillars. So it's about stress management. It's about movement. It's about nutrition. It's about the community we spend our time with, and making sure that we're covering all of our bases. So I, and part of what we do at Plant Trainers is we concentrate on adults, but most of our listeners have families, and we provide tools for those families. Yeah.
All right. So it does fit in with the plant-based lifestyle perfectly.
It does. It just sometimes needs the explanation.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the main characters in the book. Of course, there's Goldfish. He's probably the star.
The goldfish is definitely the star. The cat, like I said, the cat follows us around, but he's not quite, the character. But, what I love is that we're blowing the bubbles in the book. So we take our big breath in, and then we breathe out to let out the bubbles in the bowl. And we have the elephant, and I love elephants. Elephants for a really long time, it's kind of been my power animal. So when I meditate, I often see elephants, and Adam and I were on this amazing excursion in Africa and had literally a run-in with some wild elephants, which was wonderful too. I love the page with the dragons. That's my absolute favorite. And if you want to do it, we can do it when I'm done talking about this, but I do a nice little meditation when I go into virtual classrooms now, and we do a meditation all together with the kids based on the dragons. So I absolutely love doing that. But we also have the dandelion, where we take that deep breath in and we watch the wishes fly high. So there's lots of different opportunities for kids to identify with different pages or have their favorite page. Everybody has their favorite character, or everybody has their favorite book or their favorite chef. So, that's what they want to be around. So when the kid is in the store and having the meltdown at the grocery store, or doesn't want to leave Nana's house, then we could say, let's take a deep breath in and watch our wishes fly high, or take a deep breath in and make our fire like the dragon. We're setting up cues for the children, and we're able to utilize what they identify with the most. So that's really what I tried to achieve with the characters, is giving the children an opportunity to find something that they love for some reason or another, whether they're auditory or whether they, are visual or aesthetic, whatever it is that they like to do.
You mentioned about when the kids have like a tantrum, like in a grocery store. And I've seen that, I have a lot of empathy. I don't have kids, but like when you see it, it's, the mothers just feel terrible. But every time that I've seen that, they've given the kid sugar to stop it, which I'm like, because that's usually what the kid is having a tantrum about. They're in a store, they're in the basket, and they're seeing, how at the register they've got things, and they always give in. How do you get a mother not to do that?
So it's really difficult. And I would say it's easier if you decide beforehand that that's not something that you're going to do and you never do it once. But once you do it once, the child has learned that you're willing to do that. And therefore, they will learn that if they have a tantrum long enough and then you give in, the more often they have the tantrum, the more often they can have it. So I say for those people who don't have children yet, just decide if that's something that you're never going to do and make sure that you're on the same level with your partner or the grandparents. But then again, if it's the grandparent doing it and not you, you could kind of separate that. But sometimes, depending what it is, you might just need to let them scream it out, because then next time they're not going to learn the lesson that mommy gave in. Or go to the produce section and say, do you want a yellow apple or a green apple or a red apple? And just give that, or two options is even better. Do you want a red apple or a green apple? Here, eat the apple, right? Do you want an apple or banana? Here, eat the banana. And let them have that, because you know what, the grocery store is boring. It's, that's not where they want to be. But once they learn that you give an inch, they'll take two a lot of the time.
Yeah, it's got to be hard. Like even when my dog begs, it's like at a certain point, it's like it's just easier to give in than to keep fighting the fight.
Exactly. It breaks our hearts, because we want to watch our children be happy. We want to watch our children smile and laugh. And a lot of times we think that we need to achieve that with junk food, right? With junk food. I remember on my son's first birthday, I wanted more than anything to give him an ice cream. And I wanted it to be all over his face. And this was before we were plant-based, right? I wanted it to be all over his face. And I thought it was so cute. And he didn't even want it. And I was like, almost not forcing him, but I was encouraging him to want it. And I should have just followed his lead and stuck with the fruits and vegetables and broccoli that he loved. So I would say to those new parents or parents who aren't parents yet, to just, don't rush the junk food, because once they taste that fat, salt, and sugar, they're going to want it more and more. So I'm not saying hold off forever necessarily, but the more you show them that it's a regular occurrence, the more they'll want it to be. But if you're already in that situation, you can get out of it as well. It takes some thought and consistency and consistency.
And once you cave, man, it's hard for sure. Well, Linda says, what age children is this book specifically for?
So I would say 0 to 6, right? The 2-3-year-olds, they can rip the pages, but if you're reading it together with an adult, it's great. But then again, like I said, I have people showing it to teenagers, and the teenagers want a copy, and everybody could learn from it. But ideally, the 0 to 6 or 3 to 6 range. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Why is it important to create a common language for children and parents?
So I think that we misunderstand children sometimes, and we don't necessarily teach the children what we mean by take a deep breath, or what we mean by let's do this later. So when we can create learning opportunity for children to understand what we mean by adults, like take a deep breath in and breathe out like the goldfish, breathe out like the dragon, then children understand. And when we can do that with both parents, if there are two parents in the situation, or grandparents or guardians, when we can create that connection into the education and into the school, and everybody's using the same vocabulary, there's less for the children to misunderstand what's going on. And there's more opportunity for them to practice over and over again the same skills that will help them through that situation. So, and that's something else that I really wanted to achieve with this book, was for children to find a way to soothe themselves on their own, but also for parents to have a way to cue the children to do that as well.
Right. So what are some of the fun and engaging breathing techniques that all of us can use?
Yeah, so like I said, I love doing this activity based on the dragon page. Let me find it for you again, but here's the dragon. Yeah, here's the dragon page. Right? So they're pretending to be dragons over here. So if everybody, as long as you're not driving or riding your bike or anything like that, you can put your feet flat on the ground, and you can put your hands down on your table or your lap, and then take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And if you want to close your eyes, you can. And I want you to envision yourself as a playful dragon. So choose your color for your dragon. Do you want to be purple? Do you want to be blue? Do you want to be green? And does your dragon have a pattern? So maybe it has little avocados all over it, or maybe it's got polka dots or stripes. And is there any texture? So is it bumpy? Does it have any unique characteristics like maybe glasses or a necktie or a tiara or a unicorn horn? What does your dragon have? And now that you can see yourself as a dragon, you're going to take a deep breath in. So let's take a big breath in together and breathe out your fire. And then take another deep breath in and breathe out your fire. And one more big breath in and breathe out your fire. And I think you might find that you're feeling a little bit calmer now, that your shoulders are maybe more relaxed. I can hear already that my voice has changed, right? So that's an opportunity for you to play around with some of the characters in the book with your older children, younger children, with your partner, with your dog or cat, and just kind of like be present in that moment and take those few deep breaths in. And you can do that with the goldfish, or you can do that with the wind chimes. You could be any color you want over there. And then what you could do next is, if that doesn't work for you, if you need other things, I always wake up first thing in the morning and I do a meditation. And if my kids come down into my office or into the bedroom, they'll see Adam's meditating in the bedroom, or they'll find me meditating in my office. So just them seeing me in that light is, sometimes we'll walk in and we'll be like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm meditating. And they're copying us, right? So when you walk the walk, whether it's with plant-based nutrition or with your fitness or with your mindfulness and meditation, they're going to copy you there too. And the other thing that's really important to do is be mindful around food. So when you're sitting at the kitchen table, the TV shouldn't be on. You should be looking at your food. You should be chewing your food. You should be tasting your food and having that conversation and modeling that behavior in front of the little ones as well, so that you're not just, while everybody else is eating at the table, you're not standing at the sink wolfing down your food so that you could start cleaning up already. If you have that behavior, they're going to copy that as well. And if you're not mindful with your food, that's when we tend to overeat. That's when we tend to make different decisions than what we would have wanted to make in the first place. So mindfulness really plays into every aspect of our life.
Cool. So any other tips for families to create a calmer family environment?
Yes, definitely. I would say have conversations with your children around stress, right? And how they feel. You don't have to use the word stress, but when they seem escalated in a situation, talk about it, point it out, tell them that later on, you'll share with them some tools that might help them when they're in that kind of situation. When they're already worked up, that's not the time to teach them how to come down. You need to teach them outside that opportunity. When you're all worked up, that's not when you want to, when we're worked up about our boss or our partner or whatever it is, that's not when we want to hear how to deal with it. We just want the opportunity to let out the emotions, right? So we've got to do the work at other times. And definitely by planning healthy meals. I see a huge difference between, I wrote an article a couple of years ago called Serial Killer. Cereal spelt like the food, not an actual serial killer. And it was because I had bought the Fruity Pebbles for breakfast. We were away on vacation and I thought it would be fun. It's a vegan food. So we were having that for breakfast. And by 11 o'clock, we were all fighting in the worst mood ever. And it happened 2 days in a row and I couldn't figure out why. And then I looked at, we were eating food dyes and sugar and starch, for not good starch, right? Like bad starch for breakfast. And we were a mess. And then we went back to our regular oats and smoothies and all those other things the next day, and we were back to normal again. So definitely by planning the foods that we eat, not to say that a healthy, balanced family can't have little sugar here and there, but that's not the way to start the day, and make sure you're getting all your other good things in as well.
I mean, it's funny you say that because I used to, when I was in my 20s, maybe early 30s, I went to college late. I had a job driving children to and from school because their parents worked full time. And some of the parents would give the kids money and give them permission that I could stop. I would never take a kid to like, 7-Eleven, but the parents specifically said, this is their money. They can have whatever they want. So we would stop, and their behavior would be one way when I picked them up from school. And then they would have their Slurpees and their Cheetos or whatever. And then they would start fighting. I mean, it happened that quickly. And so the pandemic notwithstanding, I understand it's very stressful for everyone, but wouldn't you agree that certain behavior from certain children is linked to what they had for breakfast?
Absolutely. And sometimes it's not just breakfast. Sometimes it's, like you said, the other times a day. And it's our job as parents to recognize those patterns. And it's our job as parents to provide healthy, nourishing meals for our children. It's not our jobs as parents to make sure that they're super happy and excited about all of those meals. So, sometimes we need to do the tough love instead. Or, my kids are at an age where we can point out to them and be like, look, you're fighting with your sister. What did you eat in the last 5 hours? And they start to see the patterns themselves. I know. So of course our son is plant-based, and he was also gluten-free for a very long time, allergic to gluten. The smallest bit of gluten would cause a huge breakout on his skin. And some parents were really great about that. So he would go to birthday parties. They'd either say, send your own stuff, or what can I get him? So I said, he can have Lay's chips, plain Lay's chips, no problem. He can have some of that. So she bought one of those big family bags from the grocery store, and she put it in front of him. And her intention was to say, there's all these cheesies and Cheetos and whatever out on the table, but this is for you to take from. He interpreted as, this bag is all for you. So go crazy, boy. And he ate the full family size bag of chips. Well, he was so sick that night. My kids poo-poo, I can't tell you I could tell you the last time that they vomited. It was when he ate that bag of chips. They don't get sick, my kids, but he ate that whole bag of chips and he was absolutely sick. And I'm like, why do we think this happened? I didn't say anything. And he's like, Mommy, I ate the whole bag of chips and I didn't feel well after. And now I'm paying for it, kind of thing. And he was like 7 years old or 8 years old at the time. And he noticed it. He noticed it as well. So, I think it's important for us to look at that. And I've worked with lots of families where when we've taken out some of the food dyes, when we've taken out a majority of the sugar, when we've chosen specific times of day where kids have a little bit of extra, snacky, not as healthy foods, it makes a huge difference in the child's behavior, in their learning, but also just in the overall peacefulness of the family life.
Nice. Linda said, how old are your kids and did you raise them vegan?
So Russell is turning 13 and Sage is turning 11. And fortunately, they were not born vegan. They were not born plant-based. We learned about a plant-based lifestyle about 6 months into my daughter's life. So Adam went plant-based when she was about 6 months. And within that year, his heart disease went away, his tumor shrunk. And that's when I became fully on board. And over the course of the next year and a half, they went through all the stages of different kinds of vegetarians until they all became plant-based. So she can't remember eating chicken or fish or anything like that. He kind of can, but so they've been for most of their lives, they've been completely plant-based. So I did get the opportunity to transition them, which is fortunate because that helps me empathize with a lot of other parents out there when I'm leading them through that situation.
Very nice. Do you have any other tips for parents and educators?
So I think the tips are, you've got to plan, and you can't necessarily rely on the curriculum to teach your children everything they need to know. Like we said right at the beginning, it's that if schools only really taught the important things, right? Like then where would we be? So you've got to find opportunity to teach children mindfulness opportunities. You've got to find the opportunity to teach children about nutrition. Sometimes you get a lovely school that weaves that into the curriculum. Sometimes you get a lovely teacher that weaves that into the curriculum. And sometimes you really just need to advocate for yourself. So keep your eyes open for opportunities like I'm a Peaceful Goldfish to introduce stress management tools into your children's life, because that affects the choices that they'll make with food, that affects the way that they'll interact with other people. And we really do see the effect of stress on our overall health, both physical and mental.
Great. Susan wants to know, how do you manage all the cooking for your family?
Well, that's a great question. Sometimes I manage it well. Sometimes I just manage it, and sometimes I don't. I'm not always perfect at it, but what I really do is I plan. If I don't plan and I don't keep it organized, that's when I kind of lose control. So I took all of the methods that I use for myself, and I actually created a little meal planning mastery program out of it, mostly so that I would have it for myself. And I look at the different days of the week and what's going on, and I plan things out, and I batch cook where I can. So that means that I overcook some things that we're having so that I have them for later on. And I really keep things pretty simple. We have, I would say 5 out of the 7 days a week, we more or less eat the same meals. And then I allow myself the 1 or 2 nights a week to get a little bit more creative with what I'm making, try out some new things and see where I can weave that in. If you try making something fresh and new every single night, and you've got young kids and you work full time like I do, then you're gonna run out of steam pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's why they invented the drive-through, right?
Unfortunately, that's why they did, but there are some really great, I mean, at least in our area, there are some really great takeout options that work within our lifestyle. Some of them are more often than other times foods, but especially the juiceries, they have like really great wraps and stir fries and cold things that can be quick on the go. But good food, what do they say? When it comes to takeout, I don't know what the saying is. The saying something like good food's not cheap, but cheap food's not good. When you cook it at home, you can definitely make good cheap food, but when it's takeout, if you want quality food, less oil or no oil and 100% plant-based, then it costs a little more. But for us, that's where we want to spend our money. We want to spend our money on good, healthy opportunity for our family, everything from mindfulness to movement to nutrition.
Yeah, I just want to read some of the nice comments. Gina says, Shoshana is adorable and wise. I love what she's shown us from the book. And you don't even look like you're a mommy. I mean, you look like you're like just got out of college. You look fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, Susan says a plant-based planner for busy mommies would be great.
Yeah, that's, busy mommies have got to get it together. Look, if you're someone who's running a business, you're putting out social media, you've got to plan that social media. If you do that social media on the fly every day, you're not going to get your point across. It's going to look like mishmash and you're not going to attract your clients. So you've got to plan for that. If you're having a party, you're planning a surprise party or a coming of age party for somebody in your home, you're not going to just, throw that together the day of either. It's going to take months of planning. So especially when you're busy, you've got to think things through and you've got to decide, what am I going to make on what night? And I kind of break that down, and you've got to decide, what can I make in advance and when do I have the time to make it, right? The night that you have the PTA meeting and you've been working till 6 is not the night to pull out a new cookbook and start to wonder if you have all the recipe, all the ingredients, and get the recipe together.
Well, I had a chef on yesterday, and one of the things we talked about, and I think this will help everybody when this concept of mise en place. You can't come home from work tired and cranky at 6 o'clock and then put a gourmet meal together. There are steps of almost every recipe you can do in advance so that it's so much easier to make a meal, and using things like the Instant Pot. So I think those are things that can help busy people.
Oh, Instant Pot. Absolutely. Absolutely. I love my Instant Pot. In the morning, I'll make a soup or a stew so that when I come upstairs, I work down here in the basement. When I come upstairs at lunch, there's something hot and ready, especially in the winter months up in Canada. There's something hot and ready for lunch. So that kind of planning really, really helps too. There was something else that you said there that I wanted to answer to, but
Plus. So the idea of having,
yeah. So
yeah.
when you come home from work, so if you're someone who's still working outside of the house, or maybe you're like me, you work in the basement and then you come back up to the rest of the family, what I started doing when I was still teaching is before I leave the car, I'm parked in the driveway, I'm parked in the garage, whatever it is, just make sure you turn off the engine if you're inside. But I would just put my hands on my lap and I would take a couple of big deep breaths. And that really allowed me to transition from leaving my work behind to coming into the house in a much better mood than I maybe otherwise would have. Yes, maybe I'm not in the best mood, but if I can move it 1 or 2 points to a better mood, why not do that? That would be the difference for me between going straight to the pantry and seeing what I can like just get inside my body, or, having the energy to make a meal or hug my children, right? So taking that time to take those deep breaths as an adult and transitioning into whatever it is you're doing next can have a bigger effect on your overall healthy lifestyle than you really know.
Yep. And Nancy says, I'm going to order a peaceful goldfish for our grandson to have at mom and pop's house. Thank you. That's so nice of you, Nancy.
Thank you so much.
And one of the things I do, I mean, I don't have kids, but this works for me, is I'm always a meal ahead. Like I don't wait until I'm hungry to make my food. So for instance, before I go to bed at night while I'm cleaning up the kitchen, I make tomorrow's breakfast. And when I'm making tomorrow's breakfast, I'm already having lunch. I'm always thinking a meal ahead so that when I'm hungry, it's either made or almost made.
Exactly. And then, we'll be eating dinner and Adam will say to me, "Shush, the oven's still on." And I'll be like, "I know there's sweet potatoes in there." And it's because I'm getting those sweet potatoes ready to mix with some, lentils and salsa so that we have it for lunch tomorrow, or if we're doing, like burrito bowls for dinner tomorrow night. So I'm always kind of thinking ahead. I know if Adam asks me, or when kids ask me what's for dinner, I can either tell them or say, "I don't know, I need to check the list." But if I say to them, "I'm not sure yet," and it's like a day or two before, I know, like I catch myself and I know that that's when I'm running into trouble and I need to kind of take a breath and sit down and take 20 minutes and plan out the rest of the week.
Yeah, it's so funny because I used to work at True North for the holiday season for 10 years, and dinner is served there at 5. I didn't make the food for the patients. I had a special program, but we'd always want to know what's for dinner. And we would ask Chef Bravo, and it was like, "I don't know." Like he literally would wait till 4:00 to decide what he was making. And it's like, I don't roll that way. I am a planner. I've always been a planner.
Yeah. I would think somebody, would need to plan because you need to have the ingredients and all of that. But if you're not, if chefing is your whole life, or you're not working, maybe you can pull it off better than somebody who's thinking about something else all day and then walks into the kitchen. It's like, what's next?
Yeah. Linda says, do your kids like certain foods or not like certain foods?
They do like certain foods and not like certain foods. And I think most people do as well. When we first started this journey, they were not having anything to do with tofu. Like there were lots of vegetables that they didn't necessarily like. They only kind of liked what they knew. So it took a long time to teach them how to enjoy some other foods. I don't cook multiple meals for the family, but what I will do is if somebody doesn't like teriyaki sauce, you know what? They can have a stir fry without the teriyaki sauce. If somebody, is not having sweet potatoes that week, well, when they make their burrito, they don't have to put sweet potatoes in because there's rice and there's spinach and there's, tomatoes and there's alfalfa and there's all these other things on the table too. So that's how I kind of get around that, is that everybody's kind of building their own, but it's all stemming from the same core ingredients.
Yeah, that makes sense. Here's a great question from Gina. Who were you influenced by to be so wise for your young age?
Well, thank you. You're my new best friend. So
Gina's great. Gina's going to be a stand-up comedian. She's going to perform, and a lot of us on this chat are taking stand-up comedy together.
Oh, awesome. Amazing. Thank you. So so on the Plant Trainers podcast, we interview just about every week. So I'd say about 45 times a year, we are interviewing somebody different. So I've had the privilege of interviewing some of the leading experts in plant-based nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, and including Chef AJ, who's been on twice. So that's definitely something that I've learned from, but I'm 42 years old. I'm 42 years old. So, I've lived some life as well. And just through my clients and meeting great people in situations like this and online, there's so much that we could learn from each other. So I don't take credit for making it all up or knowing it all, but when I apply it to my family and it works, or I've used it with a client and it works for them, then that becomes part of the repertoire that I can help share with other people.
You mentioned you're from Canada, and if somebody in the family doesn't like teriyaki, they can have it without sauce. Can you get those vinegars that I love so much in Canada that come in flavors like teriyaki?
I don't know. I know that we have, is it like those vinegar stores and you walk in and they fill the bottles for you? We have stores like that. We don't really, I don't know. I'm maybe. I don't shop at them too often.
They're thick and reduced and syrupy. They're 4% acidity instead of 6. They're just yummy.
Right. So not in the grocery store. I try to buy those in the grocery store and end up really disappointed. But I usually use tamari, and I'll use some sesame seeds. I'll just pour the sesame seeds in and kind of get some of the flavor from that. And I use a little a little bit of maple syrup in there. So I kind of just throw together my own little sauces. Yeah.
Everybody's saying, no way, she can't be in her 40s. No way she's 40s.
Oh.
Because vegans we look about 20 years younger than our age, I think.
Definitely.
So, Manika says, what's your perception of the current quality of school food choices for children in Canada?
So Canada is much different than the United States. So I don't know if she's American or Canadian, but I find that at least the areas that we live in, we don't have that cafeteria style serving of food going on. But what we do have is we have programs where the PTA or the parents committee or the school committee will hire other companies to cater in lunches. So it could be something like the sub place down the road or the pizza place down the road, and we're bringing those foods in. We have the option of whether we want to take part in that, and we need to pay extra for it, which is really encouraging here in Canada or at least in my part of Canada, because that means that I can make a lunch for my kid every day. I could send it. They can feel like the majority of the kids. And only if I want to spend extra money, then I can order some of those other foods for my kids. So it's not like I'm spending extra money by making foods for my own kids from home. So it's a little bit different. And I think it's actually a bit of a better system. There have been times where my kids have said oh, everybody else is having pizza, I want to have pizza too. Well, that's okay. I make them pizza at home and based on our standards, and I send that with them in their lunch. And because they were getting that from a very young age, it didn't matter if it was cold or not. And, that's just the way that they learned to like it. So I'm disappointed with some of the options that we have to offer our children. Whenever they try to do healthier options, somehow they just don't come out okay. It's just, there's not good enough services to bring it in. They ordered a vegetarian chili once, and all the cups broke on the way. So it was leaking everywhere. So nobody wanted to eat it. So those kind of things kind of happen. But we're working on it down here. I mean, they've changed the food guide, and it's much more plant heavy. It uses the words plant-based. If you look at if you kind of look at the protein section of it, the plant-based proteins outweigh the amount of non-plant-based proteins in the picture. So all of that's really encouraging, but it's about shifting that mindset too. I kind of went off on a little tangent there, but I'm not super thrilled, but it's not the same as it is in the States.
Oh, that's okay. You can go off on tangents. Do you since you're a podcaster, do you like interviewing people better or being interviewed?
It's very different. I'm happy to talk anytime. So I like being interviewed, but I like the opportunity to interview other people too, because then I can ask the questions that I want to ask and I get to learn from them. I mean, I feel so privileged that I'm a lifelong learner and I can pick the brains of the best whenever I can. And that helps me learn too. And like I said, it gives me opportunity to build on what I already know and be able to translate that information into bite-sized pieces for other people as well.
Yeah. Linda wants to know if the kids ever help you cook.
They do. So one of the first times my son really got interested in cooking was because he was obsessed with hummus. I know people say hummus, I say hummus, but he was obsessed with hummus. So we would make these videos of us making hummus together. And he would say, you put in the chickpeas and you put in the salt and you put in this and you put in that. But the most important ingredient is love. So we've taught our kids, to cook with love, to cook from the heart. And my daughter was on a salad tangent for a while. So she would make salads for her lunch and make salads for the family. So there's been ups and downs and waves of when they want to participate and when they don't. And I don't overforce it. Everybody needs to help with something, right? 10 minutes before dinner's ready, I need everybody to come in and set the table and put things away and maybe chop up the banana if we're having pancakes or whatever it is. And everybody needs to help clean up. But I'm not gonna, they know that they're always welcome and they have different times when they're interested, but I don't want to overforce them because I don't want to scare them away from it either.
Great. What's your favorite meal?
Lately, my favorite meal is like a burrito bowl with brown rice and sweet potatoes and some avocado and some greens in there. That's been one of my favorites lately. And through the winter, I was obsessed with sweet potato and butternut squash and brown lentil kind of stew. That got us through the winter. We've been volunteering on a farm at a farm sanctuary. So we would come home on a Saturday night and it would be dark and we'd be freezing from, working with the animals. And we would come home and the Instant Pot would just be ready with that stew. And it was amazing.
How do you live where it's so cold? We have very dear friends that they're called snowbirds. They live here in the desert and then they go back in the summer. How do you tolerate that cold?
I mean, the truth is that we don't absolutely love it. We don't love it, but we definitely tolerate it. It's where we were born. It's what we know. But I think if we lived in the States and we could choose our climate a little bit more than we can up here, then this is not the climate that we would necessarily choose.
I love that. Choose your climate. Do your kids, Linda also wants to know, do they grocery shop with you and choose groceries?
Yes, they grocery shop with us. When they were younger, it was like, come on, we're going to the grocery store. Now we kind of need to pull them away from their work or their chat with their friends. So it's a little bit harder to get them to come with sometimes. And with the pandemic, I haven't always wanted to necessarily take them to the grocery store, but they know how to food shop. They know how to choose, a ripe avocado versus a not ripe avocado. They know how to check the apples to see if they're too bruised. They get to choose. They've always had the opportunity to choose whatever they want from the produce section, to try something new, or if they want Brussels sprouts or want broccoli or whatever it is, we've always given them that opportunity. So we don't walk down the chip aisle or the candy aisle and say, what do you want? We walk into the produce aisle and say, what do you want?
That's funny. And you fed them vegetables from a young age, right?
Yeah. So vegetables were always a huge part of our diet, a huge part of our lifestyle. And I remember my son, we had to hide the chicken. We had to hide the broccoli and give him his chicken, because if the broccoli was on the table, that's all that he wanted to eat. And I wish, and I think I said this before, I wish I would have followed his lead more. He wanted the broccoli and I was hiding the broccoli so that I can get the chicken into him. I should have followed his lead more and I should have just given him more of the vegetables, but I didn't understand what a plant-based diet was at the time. I didn't know that he'd be okay and all those other things until later on. But vegetables have always been part of it. Fruit has always been part of it. And I remember being at a friend's house.
Oops, you went away. Come back.
Yeah. Am I back? Yeah.
Back.
So I I remember being at a friend's house and saying, come on, Russ, let's go have a snack. And her saying, don't say snack. And I'm like, why? And she's like, because the kids are going to want the cookies and the da da da. And I'm like, she's like, how come you're giving your kids cookies 10 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, I'm not. Snack means a small bit of food that we eat when we're not eating a meal. But in their house, it meant a junk food, right? A sugary food or a fried food. So yeah, vocabulary plays a really big part in there too.
Yeah. Well, I recently had Dr. Nicole Lavina on, who's like food addiction expert. She said feeding kids vegetables, even more than fruit at a young age, is one of the most important things you can do. Because if you don't get them early, they're not going to learn to magically love them as they get older.
Exactly. It becomes a lot harder.
Yeah. Well, Gina says, thanks for another great guest. Absolutely. It was really fun catching up with you. You know, you've been on twice and Adam has not been on once. So please have him contact me because people need to hear his story as well. Or you can come on together with the whole family.
Or the whole family. I'll definitely let him know. Thank you so much for extending that invitation.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live and coming back day after day for almost 500 days so we could have this community together. And please come back tomorrow when my guest is a wonderful vegan filmmaker named Wendy Sachs, and she is hosting a free screening of her new film, which you can get on Amazon for $10, or you can show up tomorrow and get the code for the free screening of her wonderful film. Thanks again, Shoshana. Try to stay warm.
Thank you. Well, it's getting warmer now for sure, but be safe, everybody, and happy breathing.
Okay.